Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you here.
Absolutely.
You, the ultimate learner, always looking to understand the hidden mechanics of the world and, the people in it. Today, we have a mission that feels incredibly universal, yet deeply painfully personal.
Yeah, it really is.
We're exploring a stack of fascinating materials from talent whisperers, specifically their 2026 analysis titled The Queen's Code, the rest of the story.
It's just a remarkable set of documents to go through. And to give you some context on where this sits in the psychological landscape, this material builds on Alison Armstrong's foundational book.
Right, The Queen's Code.
Exactly. Armstrong originally posited this powerful idea that women often criticize men out of a desire to improve the relationship.
Which makes sense.
It does. In her framing, it's a quote-unquote bid for better. It's an attempt to help men show up in ways that work for both people, rather than, some malicious attempt to tear them down or control them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today we were focusing on the other side of that coin. We're taking a deep dive into what happens when that well-intentioned bid for better actually leads to profound isolation.
Yeah, the dark side of it.
Right. We are going to explore the hidden architecture of criticism, the concept of intertwined inner worlds, and how the absence of emotional safety creates a very specific, very heavy type of loneliness within a relationship.
And we are also going to uncover the shared, unspoken fear driving this entire dynamic.
It's the core of it.
It is. It's a hidden collision that happens in almost every domestic argument you can imagine. The sources call it the worthiness question. And honestly, once you see the mechanics of this, you really cannot unsee it in your own life.
No, you can't. And I mean, Armstrong's original insight is incredibly validating, right? Women do want things to be better.
Right.
But as I was reading through this Talent Whisperers analysis, I just kept hitting this wall. Like, if it's just about making things better, why does the criticism feel so intense?
Yeah, the weight of it.
Exactly. Wanting a cleaner house or better communication doesn't quite explain the sheer weight or the heaviness of the criticism that can just sometimes come out of nowhere. There has to be a missing piece.
What's fascinating here is the introduction of a concept called the internal judge.
The internal judge.
Yeah. The sources explain that for many women, the drive to improve a partner doesn't actually start with the partner at all.
Wow.
It starts with an internal pressure that was shaped in early childhood. Long before a relationship even begins, many women receive these persistent early messages from family, culture, media.
Do they have to be perfect?
That they must be competent, responsible, and basically on top of absolutely everything to earn love and respect.
And the sources refer to this as the dynamic of adult standards versus early messages. Like, the adult is holding the standard in the present moment, but those early childhood messages are the ones driving the bus.
They're entirely running the show.
And this trains the nervous system to constantly scan the environment for safety. It creates this chronic, exhausting state of hypervigilance.
The nervous system learns that preventing problems is literally the only way to stay acceptable. And we really have to separate this from the desire to be controlling.
That's a huge distinction.
It's massive,
Right.
because it's a fundamental survival mechanism. The internal judge sets a perfectionistic standard that simply never turns off. It constantly demands that she do more, know more, anticipate more.
And be more.
Exactly, just constantly be more.
The sources give a really visceral, real-world example of this, too. The stress of having company over.
Oh, yeah, a classic scenario.
Right. Imagine a couple getting ready for guests. When a woman with a highly active internal judge sees a misplaced sock or a pile of mail on the kitchen table, her mind does not treat it as a small detail to be handled later.
Not at all.
To her, it is a flashing red light. It signals potential failure. It signals inadequacy. And it doesn't just happen with chores either.
Right, the work-from-home dynamic is a huge trigger.
Yes. Think about managing finances. Or if she's on a Zoom call and there's background noise from the other room. The internal judge isn't just annoyed by the noise. It's screaming that she is failing at her career and failing at managing her home simultaneously.
The divergence in perception between partners in those moments is just striking.
It's like they're in two different realities.
They are. To a partner who doesn't carry that same internal pressure, it's just a sock. Or it's just a little bit of background noise. But to her, the guest's potential judgment or the coworker's opinions are actually secondary.
Secondary to what?
Secondary to the voice of her own internal judge, which is already screaming that she's falling short of the mark.
Which leads us to a pivotal question. If this is entirely an internal battle, a war waged inside her own head against her own internalized standards,
Oh.
How does it end up destroying the relationship with the person sitting right next to her?
That brings us to what the sources call the spillover effect.
The spillover effect.
Yeah. When the internal judge is highly active, the pressure is simply too immense to be contained within one person's psyche. It spills outward.
And it has to go somewhere.
Right. So the woman isn't just judging the man. She is judging her entire environment through the relentless lens of her own adequacy.
And because of the nature of a close relationship, the environment inevitably includes him.
Always.
The analysis introduces this concept of intertwined inner worlds. In a long-term partnership, boundaries naturally become permeable. The man is her chosen partner.
Right.
That means he's no longer just a separate entity operating in her orbit. He is experienced as a direct extension of her own identity.
And the impact of that intertwining is profound when you really think about it. Because he is a reflection of her chosen life, his behavior begins to feel like direct evidence of her adequacy.
So if he drops the ball.
If he isn't helping prepare for the company, or if he misses a detail on the household budget, she feels entirely abandoned. She feels left alone with a burden she already believes she is failing to carry. The impossible standard she applies to herself quietly, almost invisibly, expands to include him.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We have to pivot to the man's perspective to see the other half of this collision. How does this overflowing internal pressure, this intense criticism that spills out of her, actually land in his nervous system?
It triggers a phenomenon the text calls identity activation.
Identity activation.
Yeah.
Meaning it attacks who he is.
Precisely. See, feedback from an acquaintance, a coworker, or a stranger that stays at the level of behavior, if a roommate says, "Hey, pick up your sock," it's just a conversation about laundry.
Right. It's annoying, but it's just a sock.
But feedback from a chosen partner lands entirely differently. It pierces the armor. It lands as a verdict on his core identity and his worth as a human being.
Because their inner worlds are intertwined. Suddenly it isn't about the dishes, it's about his survival as a valued partner. The text highlights that he's essentially hearing two conversations at once in these moments.
Yeah.
He hears his partner's words, of course, but he also hears his own internal self-doubt amplified through a megaphone. The outer criticism doesn't create the pain out of thin air. Rather, it activates a fear that already lives deep inside him.
The fear that he is inherently falling short.
Exactly.
The analysis uses this brilliant iceberg metaphor to illustrate the dynamic. Above the surface of the water, all we see is the visible behavior.
The fight over the dishes.
Right. We see external criticism and exasperation from her, and we see defensive withdrawal and stonewalling from him. But beneath the surface, hidden in the freezing dark water, lies the exact same unspoken question for both partners. It's the worthiness question.
It is the unifying psychological thread of the entire conflict.
It really is.
Beneath the surface, her internal judge is screaming, "Am I not doing enough?" While his inner critic is whispering, "Am I not worthy?" You have two forms of severe existential self-doubt meeting inside one single conversation about a messy living room.
And neither one realizes that the other is fighting an internal battle regarding their own value.
It's a tragic irony. They're experiencing the exact same core fear, but their coping mechanisms put them at war with one another.
It really is the ultimate dark fairy tale.
You kiss a frog, you put in the work, you buy him a nice sweater, and somehow he turns back into a frog.
Exactly.
Sources call this frog farming. And honestly, it sounds like the worst agricultural strategy ever. You start with a prince, and through well-intentioned effort to improve him, you unintentionally turn him into a frog.
The mechanics of how frog farming actually happens are rooted deeply in nervous system regulation. The sources explain that humans naturally possess elevation energy.
Elevation energy.
Yeah. This is a healthy, vital desire to grow, to improve ourselves, and to improve our partners and our surroundings. But if that growth energy lands on the partner as an evaluation of their current performance, it instantly intersects with that existing fear of inadequacy we just talked about.
And boom, the nervous system instantly feels threatened. And when the nervous system feels threatened, the prince doesn't just lose his character or decide to be difficult. He actively reorganizes his entire behavior around safety. He shuts down.
This maps perfectly onto what emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, calls the protest withdraw cycle.
Ah, the terrible dance.
It is. Think of it like a dance where both people are aggressively stepping on each other's toes. She feels the immense pressure of her internal judge. She panics, and she escalates her criticism.
because in her mind, this is a protest.
Right, a desperate attempt to get his attention, relieve the pressure, and restore a sense of connection.
But he doesn't experience it as a plea for connection. He experiences that protest as a direct identity threat. So he withdraws, he gets quiet, and he gets defensive to protect his fragile sense of self.
Which just makes it worse.
Totally. Her protest triggers his withdrawal. His withdrawal triggers even more protest from her because now she feels ignored. The cycle completely locks in.
Each of their reactions completely confirms their worst internal fears. She sees him pull away, physically or emotionally, and her internal judge says, "See, he doesn't care. You are in this alone."
And he hears her escalate her criticism, and his inner critic says, "See, I will never be enough for her no matter what I do." For you listening, this is exactly where the profound loneliness of this dynamic sets in. The sources define loneliness in this specific context, not as physical isolation.
Right, it's not about being physically alone.
You can be sitting right next to your partner on the couch, watching a movie, sharing a meal, and feel like you're on entirely different planets. Loneliness here is the complete and total absence of emotional safety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources provide a really interesting sociological framework regarding gendered socialization.
And they explicitly frame it as context, not blame, which is important to state up front.
Very important. We are just reporting what the analysis points out here. It notes that patriarchal societal values and upbringing often train women to be gatherers. In a modern context, that doesn't mean foraging for berries.
No, it means they're tasked with constantly scanning the home, the relationships, and the environment for emotional and physical safety.
Exactly. And men, conversely, are often trained as hunters, socialized for a single-pointed focus on a specific task or goal. And they typically aren't carrying that same relentless internal pressure to scan the domestic space for micro-threats.
It's a fascinating way to look at it, and the text makes a great point here. Understanding this cultural context isn't about placing blame or giving anyone a pass for bad behavior. It's just about understanding why two people can look at the exact same messy living room and have wildly different internal reactions.
Right.
The sources even point to the 2023 Barbie movie as a stylized cultural exploration of this exact impossible pressure placed on women to be everything to everyone at all times. It gives us the why behind the origin of the behavior without ever excusing the hurtful criticism that spills out.
The context removes the fault, but it does not remove the responsibility to heal the dynamic. It simply makes visible the very different inner worlds that men and women often inhabit while living inside the exact same home.
So what does this all mean? If you recognize this dynamic in your own life, if you hear that internal judge screaming at you about a messy kitchen, or if you feel that defensive withdrawal kicking in the moment your partner sighs, how do you actually fix this?
This raises an important question, and the sources reveal a massive paradigm shift for couples caught in this loop. The goal is not to fix the partner.
Oh, let me guess.
The goal is to quiet the judge. Everything rests entirely on rebuilding emotional safety.
Let's define that clearly for the listener. Emotional safety is the felt sense that your inner world is understood, respected, and not under threat from the person you love most.
The text notes a profound psychological truth that goes against how we usually try to solve relationship problems. Safety matters more than motivation.
Say more about that.
You can be highly motivated to improve your communication. You can read all the books, but we simply cannot connect with another human being while our nervous system is busy protecting ourselves. The biology simply won't allow it.
Fortunately, the analysis provides some incredibly practical communication strategies to start building that safety.
Yes, actual tools.
The first one is called naming the narrative. This is about stopping the protest withdrawal cycle in its tracks by voicing the internal reality instead of the external complaint.
Right.
It means pausing in the heat of the moment, taking a breath, and saying something like, "My internal judge is yelling at me right now. I'm feeling a massive amount of pressure about this house that honestly has nothing to do with you, but I can feel it spilling out onto you."
Naming the narrative is effective because it immediately separates the partner from the pressure. It takes him out of the crosshairs. He no longer has to defend himself against an attack because you've identified that the true source of the distress is the internal judge, not him.
Tool number 2 builds on that. It's the Ein statement upgrade. It's moving away from accusations entirely.
Leaving the frog farming behind.
Exactly. The old way, the frog farming way, is saying, you never help around the house, you just sit there and you don't care how stressed I am. Right, the upgrade is moving into radical vulnerability. It sounds more like, I feel incredibly overwhelmed when the house is messy, because my brain tells me it means I am failing at my life.
Yeah.
You speak directly to the fear. completely bypassing the surface behavior.
Alongside those in-the-moment communication tools, the sources recommend specific rituals for repair. The objective here is to build up a reservoir of goodwill. They want to strengthen what they call the allies.
The allies being the inner voices of steadiness, reassurance, and inherent worth.
Exactly. So they become much louder than the saboteurs, like the internal judge or the inner critic.
So if we are trying to quiet that judge and strengthen the allies, it sounds like we need reps. The sources mention these rituals for repair, and the daily check-in really caught my eye because the rule is you absolutely cannot try to fix your partner's problem.
That's the key. The daily check-in is a structured time, maybe over morning coffee or before bed, where partners share one stress and one gratitude from their day. But you're right, the absolute hardest part for many people is that the listening partner's role is solely to understand.
No fixing allowed.
You are not allowed to offer solutions. You are just witnessing their experience.
That sounds simple, but incredibly hard to do in practice when you see someone you love stressing out. But the point is to show that their feelings are safe with you, not that you're a good problem solver.
Another ritual mentioned is progressive disclosure. This involves slowly and intentionally sharing deeper, older vulnerabilities over time.
Right, you don't just trauma dump on day one.
No, you don't dump your entire childhood trauma on the first date. But over years, you build a foundation of trust because you are trusting your partner with your softer feelings, your deepest insecurities, and they are receiving them with care and validation.
And then there's the 4-minute eye-gazing exercise. This one always sounds a bit intense.
It can be.
Sitting across from each other, setting a timer, and maintaining eye contact for 4 minutes without speaking a single word. It strips away all the intellectualizing, it forces you to drop the verbal arguments, and fosters pure emotional attunement. You're just two nervous systems co-regulating in real time.
All of these practices work together to lower the persistent defenses, quiet the internal alarms, and make it fundamentally safe to be imperfect in the presence of someone else.
As we wrap up this deep dive, let's summarize the ultimate takeaway from the Talent Whisperer's analysis. The highest form of the Queen's Code, the rest of the story, is understanding that we are all fighting incredibly hard battles inside our own minds.
We really are.
That outward criticism you face from a partner or that you dish out yourself is so often just a mask for internal self-judgment. And that frustrating, maddening withdrawal from your partner isn't a lack of love, it's just a shield protecting a very fragile sense of worthiness.
Realizing this dynamic doesn't give anyone a free pass for toxic, avoidant, or hurtful behavior. The dishes still need to be done.
Right.
But what it does do is replace a cycle of blame with the architecture of compassion. When we finally realize that our partner's intense reaction is actually about their own worthiness question, we can stop reacting to their surface behavior and start responding to their underlying fear.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a completely different angle to chew on. We've spent a lot of time talking about how to provide emotional safety for a partner so they don't feel like a frog. But if emotional safety is the absolute prerequisite for quieting the judge and finding connection, how does this apply to the relationship you have with yourself? Tomorrow morning, when you look in the mirror or look at your to-do list, notice if you are actually providing emotional safety for your own inner world.
That's a great point.
Are you giving yourself grace? Or are you the one frog farming yourself with impossible standards? What might happen if, the next time that harsh voice flares up, instead of fighting it, you just quietly thanked it for trying to protect you and told it that you are finally safe enough to handle things from here?
That changes everything.
Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. We wish you the best of luck on your own journey of learning, unlearning, and finding true connection.